self-control unless you admit, hey, I got areas where I'm not in control. It's a conscious choice in the face of temptation. A strong resolve. I'm going to go through enough training to be able to resist. I'm going to be someone who has mastered their temptations and developed control over them. I'm going to be somebody who's in total control. We hear self-control and we think self-discipline. I need to be in control of myself. I just need to master temptation. Our attempts at self-control are a lot like whack-a-mole. Remember that game Whack-A-Mole where something pops up and you slap it down, and then as soon as you slap it down, something else pops up? That's what it looks like to me for somebody who's trying to control themselves. The more they try to control themselves, the faster the things pop up and the harder it is to keep them down to where no one can see them. We approach temptation and we try to whack it when it pops up. And it can always be just exhausting. And the bad news is it always fails. Eventually we can't keep up. Our passions, our desires, our needs pop up faster than our ability to suppress them, and truthfully, we're not really good at whacking them when they show up. Too many Christians are exhausted and disillusioned because they're trying to master their temptations, trying to obtain and maintain self-control. It's very fleeting. You think you have it for a minute and then it's gone. The world's definition of self-control is really self-discipline. The ability to overcome temptation. You see, that's how the world approaches every problem that we face as humans. And honestly, there's no other option if you exclude God. I mean, if you think about it, if you take away the possibility or the influence or the power of God, then all you're left with is self. And so the only control you could possibly have is self-control. We think if we can just control the temptation. So we go to programs like AA. We go to programs where they teach you, hey, next time you have that urge, you're always going to have that urge. You'll never change. You'll be that way every day. The next time you have that urge, just call your buddy or figure out a way to stop it. You got to get stronger overcoming your temptation. James 1, 13, 14. But each person is tempted. Think about that. Each person, every one of us is tempted. When he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Why are you tempted? Because you desire something that you don't have. Who tempted you? You did. Each person is tempted when he's lured, when he's drawn his attention to. It's like a fish that sees something go by. When you have that temptation, you're enticed by your desire and you're drawn to it. You're lured to it. By what? Desire. Then desire, when it's conceived, gives birth to sin. I love the way he says that. Desire, when it's conceived. In other words, when you first think about it, you go, I'm not going to do that. But then you start percolating on it. You start thinking about it. Wait a minute. Maybe that would work. Maybe I could keep that quiet. Maybe I could do that. It starts to conceive. It starts to build. It starts to get delivered. The temptation that came from your desire is now moving to an action. And that action brings forth sin. Sin is real simple. You've decided to do what you want to do instead of what God said to do. And sin, when it's fully grown, brings forth death. Notice that there's growth in this passage. It's conceived. It builds. And then it brings death. It's really a reflection of our life. We're conceived. We build as sinful people, and then comes death. Sin always follows this pattern. If you don't make the right choice. But don't miss the pattern. I preach on this all the time. You're probably sick of hearing it. Desire, temptation, choice, sin, death. Know that. Desire, temptation, choice, sin, death. Go to any sin in your life. It started like that. You didn't fail because you lacked self-control. The failure point was not controlling your desires. Does that make sense? If you take the example of the person who drinks too much, the problem is not that they need more self-control. It's not that they need more willpower. What they need is a God to change them into somebody who doesn't desire alcohol.
Amen. Amen.
And to refuse to believe that that's possible, translated, you'll always be an alcoholic, denies the very God who says, no, that's not how this works. I came to bring life. I came to free people from bondage. I came to set the captives free. I'm the God of the universe. What's too hard for me? If you don't think I can overcome alcohol in your life, you don't know who I am. Because Jesus came to make you a new person, not a new, improved you. The world says I'll be self-controlled. I'll focus on the temptation. I'll stay away from the bars. I'll stay away from my buddies who drink. Those are great things. I'll do it myself. And when I'm tempted, I'll have enough discipline to resist. And I always ask him, how's that going for you? Is that working? Because in my experience, it didn't work for me. It's never worked for me. Me trying to control myself is a joke. The world views self-control is motivated by beating down a desire. And we almost buy the lie that we have to have the desire. We don't believe that the mold can stop coming up. We just got to get better at whacking it. Speed it down, you see, because our success depends on us, not God. Thus, we are limited in what we can achieve on our own. We see people say anybody can do it with enough willpower. Problems are not all named Will. We need God's power. We need God's power. And we do pretty good at our own willpower until the desire gets too strong. Builds in us. You ever notice that? Mm-hmm. You may be able to put it off today, but tomorrow it just seems bigger. Seems like it's growing. Seems like it's conceiving. Seems like it's building in us to the point that what the willpower we had yesterday is not enough for today. Give us this day our daily bread. Lead us not into, what was it?
Temptation.
How does it lead you? How does that work?
Lead us into temptation.
You change your desire. Lead us not into temptation.
Lead us not into temptation.
You see, we've all proven the human experiment is that we've all failed at controlling our desires. And at some point, our desire, the temptation becomes too big and we can't resist. We talk about self-control, but every one of us, if we really were honest, know that we can't control ourselves. Fortunately, God doesn't leave us in our mess.
Amen.
He says, look, when you surrender to me, I'm going to bring something from the throne into your life. I'm going to bring the Spirit of God into you. And there's going to be a self-control you've never experienced before. There's going to be a self-control that comes from me, from the Spirit of God. And it never fails. You see, when you think of self-control, we also often think about controlling ourselves. When you read about self-control in the Bible, I want you to just immediately change it to Christ control. That's what the biblical sense of self-control is in the Bible. I'm controlled by Christ. The best image that I can think about, it's not someone who's in control of themselves, it's someone who's surrendered to God. think a lot about horses. Mostly because I'm from the great state of Texas, I think. Horses are big animals. Have you ever been around a horse?